The underlying code of modern society is driven by raw resource extraction and the constant consumption of energy. Standard sociological models suggest that pro-social behavior and mutual cooperation are evolutionary survival mechanisms, ensuring the stability of the collective. A structural realist perspective reframes these behaviors as artificial control mechanisms designed to optimize the economic output of the population. This tripartite stratification model maps how resources and risks are distributed across three distinct functional layers. The bottom tier follows established rules to absorb systemic risk, providing the stability required for the layers above. The middle tier generates arbitrage by exploiting loopholes, taking advantage of price differences between markets to lock in a risk-free profit. The top tier engineers the rules themselves to harvest the energy and capital generated below. A purely predatory system faces a mechanical challenge. The friction of zero-sum hostility should lead to a total collapse of the structure. Moral codes like altruism and forgiveness act as a social lubricant. They maintain productivity at the base while suppressing the upward mobility of the lower tiers. Society functions as a rigged game, designed to isolate risk at the base and predictably siphon value to the apex. Rules act as physical restraints for the masses, functioning much like rigid traffic lights at a densely crowded intersection. These signals prevent catastrophic collisions among the congested lower classes, making compliance a necessity for those with limited space. The apex tier operates on private flight paths. At this level of the hierarchy, standard signaling and friction do not apply. This chart maps systemic compliance against alpha yield. Alpha yield is a financial metric representing the excess return on an investment relative to a benchmark index. Maximum profit is concentrated in the gray zone between strict legality and illegality. The apex generates wealth by navigating this humus-rich gray zone, extracting value without triggering the systemic antibodies of law enforcement. Avoiding societal exile while operating outside these rules requires a shift in how one engages with the market. This strategy involves refusing to compete in crowded markets. Instead, the player sells shovels to the gold miners and antidotes to the anxious. True systemic advantage is achieved by acquiring the capital to own the casino rather than attempting to win the game. Human variables like love, loyalty, and self-respect must be integrated into this mathematical framework to understand their actual utility. This diagram illustrates marriage as a mergers and acquisition strategy. M&A refers to the consolidation of assets or companies through financial transactions to increase market power. Marital M&A serves to hedge risk, consolidate resources, and utilize genetic complements to solidify a family's class standing. Within this system, betrayal operates as a mathematical inevitability rather than a moral failure. A breach of trust occurs when the chips gained from backstabbing outweigh the long-term yield of remaining loyal. Maintaining a zero-trust environment requires an exhausting, nearly infinite amount of defensive energy. This necessitates an application of the broken window effect. This criminological theory suggests that visible signs of minor infractions encourage further crime. In a social context, forgiveness marks an individual as a safe target for exploitation. Deterrence is established through the display of frightening fangs, using extreme retaliation against minor boundary breaches to ensure future peace. Self-respect and face function as negative assets on this ledger. The military strategist Han Sin accepted public humiliation because his terminal goal was rulership, rendering temporary ego irrelevant to his calculations. Relational stability is purchased through the ruthless consolidation of assets and the maintenance of a credible threat of force. This structural funnel represents information isolation, the primary defense mechanism used to maintain class boundaries. The bottom tier is flooded with fragmented, low-quality entertainment, which erodes the capacity for deep thought and delayed gratification. The apex tier monopolizes dense, actionable research to maintain absolute decision-making superiority. If the bottom tier lacks resources, they should theoretically optimize their survival by utilizing free assets and information. However, free resources function as a slow poison. They bypass risk filtration and drain a person's most vital, non-renewable assets, their time and their capacity for trial and error. This diagram illustrates the Veblen effect. The Veblen effect is an economic phenomenon where the demand for a good increases as its price rises, as the high price signals social status. To maintain this status, luxury brands destroy tons of unsold inventory to create an artificial price floor and spike demand. This principle applies to human capital. Perpetual accessibility and low cost strip an individual of social leverage. In the classical text Dream of the Red Chamber, the character Liu Laolao gains access to the elite through the provision of scarce novelty, rather than through sycophancy. Artificial scarcity remains the only currency capable of purchasing cross-tier mobility within the casino. These models reveal a chilling reality regarding the nature of human effort. Tactical hard work in the lower tiers is a structural trap. Increasing your speed within the base only accelerates the consumption of your own lifespan. Tactical rotation serves as an escape from the complex, anti-intuitive strategic climbing required to change tiers. This timeline maps biological lifespan against competitor leverage. Biological health serves as the final physical lever in the model. Maintaining health is an aggressive strategy. The goal is to outlive competitors and claim their accumulated chips when they inevitably expire. Successful players must also navigate the idol creation trap, where the crowd builds an individual up to satisfy a collective urge to eventually destroy them. An apex player maintains extreme paranoia against public praise, viewing it as the prelude to a slaughter. The final phase transition of this model involves a complete stripping of reverence for the system's architecture. This state requires the psychological removal of all programmed respect for authority, class, and traditional moral frameworks. When these frameworks are recognized as arbitrary code designed to discipline the weak, the illusion of the casino dissolves. Operating outside of this code grants the individual the power to rewrite their own structural matrix. The system does not spare you because you are a good person. It consumes you because you are defenseless.